Good morning, anybody and everybody that's out there. Tillers, I see you're out here. How is everyone today? I see Isaac is still going strong, but sooner or later she'll give up, I guess. Tillers, you're actually one of the people I wanted to talk to today. So I hope you're around and paying attention. What I'm going to be working on today is a little more of my atlas for the world, but specifically for the region that I'm focusing on. If you were on the stream on Sunday, you saw me working on a map, and today I'm going to start putting together at least article stubs for the many things that go onto that map. I've already put together an article. This is mostly done. This is basically the cover article for the whole region that kind of covers the whole map. But all of these things in the sidebar need articles, and some of them I've either gotten started or actually have gotten bits from summer camp. But as you can see, most of them are not yet in existence, so that is the goal for the day. Before I start, I wanted to actually go through the map itself. Tillers, if you're out there, wave if you're out there, please, otherwise I could be talking to nobody. This is the map that I put together on Sunday. Actually, I finished it up. In fact, I finished it up, and I was so happy and excited that I finished it that I published it on like 4 or 5 different discords. And then when I was looking at it, I realized, Songbird, hello! Does that mean you have internet back? It's our song NATO. On audio only, internet out till 6 tonight. Ooh. So you're not going to get a lot done today, are you? So you don't get to see the pretty pictures then. That's too bad. I have up on the screen now the map that I worked on Sunday, and I finished it up. And as I started to say, I was so happy with it that I published links to it on about 4 or 5 different Discord servers. And then I took a good look at it, and I realized it was wrong in one major area. Heading down to family to mooch off their internet. Yeah, that's what family is for. So I did fix it, and I'm very grateful to Dimmy for the way he put this all together in World Anvil, because I was able to modify the map and then incorporate the map, the new version of the map, back into World Anvil without breaking any links. So I like that feature. I like that ability. The fact that he has a little bit of separation between the actual URLs or the actual images and the references to them. The other thing I want to point out, by the way, is I have a bunch of new options to spend your Dino tracks on. I had some fun last night playing with icon generation. You'll notice that I have a custom icon for my hydrate prompt. Yes, that's an octopus or upside down. Yeah, caffeinate. There's one. Yes, that's an octopus sipping on a cup of water for hail hydrate. And yes, I know a hydra and an octopus aren't the same thing, but that's okay. You'll also notice that there are a couple. The music is a bit loud. Okay, I can fix that. Yes, that was a bit loud, wasn't it? How's that? Is that better? Hopefully that's better. Yeah. Yeah, there's also a couple of options to launch sprints. Um, so so they're there. I'm not calling them word sprints because depending on what day it is, if it's Sunday, for example, I mean, you guys want to do word sprints, that's fine, but I'll be doing map sprints if a sprint is called for. So anyway, what I did was I modified, I cleaned up this map, and I'm happy with it now. But I also went in and I created another layer for this map, and I actually plan on creating two more. And these are, it's kind of designed to show the history of the area. So this is what the area looks like today, today in world terms. And here's what it looked like 2,000 years ago after the major catastrophe that struck the whole world. And you'll notice that there's a lot less trees and there's a lot less green, and that's all on purpose. And what I want to do actually is create two more layers that that show before that catastrophe happened and also right at the very beginning of the world. And those will mirror. I'll show you what I had in mind, because I've done a similar thing with my world map. And Tillers, if you're there, this is where you're going to come in, because I have a big question. If I look at my world map, and you folks have seen this one before, and I was playing with a lot of markers and things like that on this map. Center it a little bit, but you'll see I have 4 layers and then a bunch of marker groups. And the question I have, and hopefully there's somebody out there that can answer it, in working with the layers, I noticed that each layer has an entry in World Anvil for marker groups. But when I tried to use it, like I tried to say, I want the cities on this After the Great Strife map, but it didn't work. And not only didn't it work, but if I did that, the After the Great Strife layer didn't even show up on the map. So I'm guessing either there's something broken, or but I'm wondering what the intent is, because what I would really like, I have cities, for example, and I don't have all my cities defined on here, but using the cities as an example, this city did not exist. In fact, no cities existed before the Awakenings, all right, because there were no people, all right, there were no elves, there were no nothing. So I'm wondering if there's a way for me to put specific marker groups that I could, if I have to rename or make adjustments to them too, I will. But if I had to make adjustments so that if I'm looking at before the Awakenings, for example, the only marker groups I'd probably want to see are mountain ranges and forests, because there's no cities and there's no dwarves yet. So I'd want to be able to do this, all right, and I'd want to be able to bring up, look at the mountains, but I wouldn't want to see cities even if I clicked on it. There shouldn't be any. Likewise, before the Great Strife, some of the cities will be there from now, but there'll be other cities that aren't there anymore, and there'll be some cities, especially down in here, that don't exist. So I'm wondering if anybody has an idea of how that all is supposed to work. But I will figure it out, and I will play with it. I've also put in a request to Dimmy, by the way. It would be nice to be able to rename the base layer to be, a name of my choosing, because if I could do that, it would say the world today or something like that instead of just base. But we'll see if Dimmy responds to that at all. I think this is a cool feature, though, the ability to, just with a click, see how the world progresses by using the different layers. So fun with maps. And here comes the raid. Isaac, welcome. Hope the end of your stream was good. I know I was there for a good part of it. Oh, there's the flaming toast. Laura, good afternoon. Morning for me, afternoon for you, I believe. Yeah, it's afternoon for you. Who else do we have here? I know there's got to be more of you hiding. Nobody's chatting today. It's a quiet day. So anyway, back to the map at hand. Is midnight the afternoon? I guess morning works for you then too. So anyway, again, this is the map that I, for no reason, good morning or afternoon for you, as the case may be. Everybody, just so everybody knows, E Songbird had a bit of a tornado event last night. She is currently on audio only, but is on the way to glom off her parents' internet for the day. So she should be back to her normal self at some point during the day today. They're expecting to have everything back together for you, though, by the end of the day today. That's not too bad if you have power. And is your power back on yet? Because I mean, your power is the first important thing, because you have to deal with things like refrigerators and freezers and that sort of stuff. Walking Dead, good morning or afternoon or whatever. Good day. Isaac, do we all have to start appropriating the Australian good day? Is that the safest way to get around this? That still doesn't help your midnight problem, I guess. Power is fine. Only thing off is the internet. That's not so bad then. At least they got your power back on quickly. So, as I said, today's plan. Apparently, there are 500,000 homes never. There's still. As of this morning or late last night, there were still 40,000 homes in New Jersey that were out, that were missing power since last Tuesday's tropical storm. So if you think about it in that context, you can't complain. I ended up being tremendously lucky. We had in our town. Where I live on a corner property, and we actually have our house power is connected to a grid line that goes out to the local highway and then runs off God knows where. Most of the rest of the town is connected to a grid that runs off a substation that's in town. A 100-plus-year-old walnut tree fell into that substation during the tropical storm. So I was one of about 5% of houses in my town that never lost power. Everybody else, they were down for a week. It just came back. Some people Saturday, some people Sunday. So I got lucky this time. The last time we had a major event, though, I was out for 8 days or something. For those of you in the U.S. anyway who remembers Superstorm Sandy or Hurricane Sandy or whatever you want to call it, I was out for 8 days power for that one. That's not fun. And that one was in the winter, or the beginning of winter. It got cold at night and we didn't have heat. So that wasn't fun. But anyway, on to more pleasant things. Coffee quills, yeah, from a Floridian with hurricanes, yes. Yeah, you know what though? We're getting more and more of them up in Jersey now too. Usually they're at least calmed down by the time they get to Jersey. I mean, we don't get the Cat 5s here. Um, but a Cat 1 or Cat 2 in a region that wasn't built out for them can be pretty devastating. No, Sandy was about 10 years ago now. I lose track. And it might have hit Puerto Rico, because Sandy was one of these. I think it came through the Bahamas, it hit Florida, went out to sea, and then turned around and came back, and came straight into New Jersey and New York City. All right, and just kind of ran right through. It was the first time in my memory, and I'm 61 years old. It was the first time in my memory that the subway system in New York City had to be shut down because of major flooding. And I mean, yeah, a station or two, it happens, with a water main break or something. But this was literally the water was coming in over the wall, over the sea walls at the bottom of Manhattan Island, and was flowing up the streets and falling into the subway tunnels and the car tunnels. So Sandy was the wake-up call for the Northeast, as far as global warming and rising sea levels. We folk in the Northeast of the United States have started to take that whole talk much more seriously as a whole than we did 10 years ago. I'm surprised Florida has. I know it's becoming a bigger issue in Florida too, but at the rate things are going, half of Florida is going to be underwater by the end of the century, and that's without storms. So it'll keep the map makers busy anyway. And Florida's going to fill up from the middle out. That's the wild thing. I mean, the Everglades are going to fill up first, and then you're going to end up with the island of Miami. Well, Miami actually might go under, but you'll end up with these little islands in the middle of nowhere. Extra barrier islands and all kinds of good stuff. Isaac, the closest thing we get to hurricanes and thunderstorms, which is pretty rough, but at least the power's on. Yeah. All right, so anyway, to get started, and this is the map I want to play with, and I haven't put any pins in this map. I've actually labeled the towns and cities. I mean, I will be putting pins in it, or something like pins in it to link these things to articles. But I've actually put the labels right on the map. In this case, I kind of like the look of it. And my plan for the day is to focus mainly on the settlements. And as I said, what I want to do is start connecting these settlements to articles, because this is actually information that's useful to my gaming groups. Now, this is the area that they're playing in. Specifically, they're playing. Let's zoom in here. I guess that's as much as I can zoom in. It's not on the map, but right about under where the hand is now on the map is a wonderful little place called the Bugbear's Head Inn. Actually, it's a little closer down this way. And that is home base for my 3 playtest groups right now. All right, and they're basically adventuring in this general region rather. I might actually have a few more towns to put onto this map. I notice I haven't put Spirit Lake on here yet. That needs to be right around here. Those of you who caught my strawberry article for summer camp, here is where Spud Barrow is. So now everybody knows where Spud Barrow is. That's where the strawberries come from. So, like I said, this is a very important area to my players. Most of them, all of them, come from either. I do have 1 or 2 that come from this city way up here, And it took them quite a while to make their way down here. By the way, the scale of this map is 2,500 miles across and 4,000 miles long, top to bottom. All right, so this is not a tiny area. I have one dwarf who comes from a dwarven delve that's off the map to the south. All right, and he had to trudge. This little dotted line is a 2,000-year-old ruin of a highway. But he basically walked that alone until he got to about here, and then he found civilization again. Moonflower, good morning or afternoon, by the way. Was I on the stream before I went to breakfast? No, you probably weren't. Space Trash, how are you? I don't think I've seen you on streams before. Welcome. I don't know if you've been here before or if you changed your name. I know some people do that from time to time. I'm going to do a self-caffeinate, a self-posture check. And a self-hydrate. So, you haven't been watching a lot of streams yet. No, okay. So you are new. Okay. Oh, there's another hydrator. Is that the one I just did? Or are you going to make me do it again? I'll make it official. Okay. So to start setting up, unlike the funny thing I realized is, unlike in summer camp where we're given prompts that ask for very specific aspects about locations, because I'm dealing with location templates today. The kind of information I want to do here is not terribly detailed in any one area, but I probably do want to cover most of the things that appear in the template, just to give some good general information about the area I'm dealing with. I'm talking about. So I mean, actually, these are settlements, not locations. But I'm kind of, this is basically the Wikipedia, for the region. So, you want a little bit of general information on a lot of different subjects they're all covered in the template. So I'm going to be running through the templates and at least starting to fill out lots of bits and pieces of information. Now, some of the important stuff again that I know I want to include, I've actually started a bit of a spreadsheet. That was weird. Okay. Come on, there we go. These are the settlements that I'm dealing with. There's actually another couple that I have to go dig up the names for. And what I've done so far is, these are the settlements I need to cover. What region are they in? And if I jump back and forth to the map, the coastal region is everything north of the Oakwood Forest. There are no settlements in the Oakwood Forest, so I didn't have to worry about that. The Meadows is this area between the forests, and then there's the Feywood itself. So I know where the towns are or the settlements are. I know what size they are. All right, and I'm, by the way, I'm a spreadsheet geek, so I basically set up a random number generator to give me the populations, and that was based on this little table here that sets minimums, maximums, where to round the numbers off to, because I'm not gonna say the population is 387,402. But I built the little table to help me with that, so that if I have to as I add new towns or whatever, all I really need to know is the size, and I'll get a population. And these I've frozen in place once I got numbers that look reasonably good. But just in case I need it in the future, I have a little hidden line here that's got my formula in it. So those of you who can actually read the screen right now, All right, like I said, I'm a bit of a spreadsheet geek. I know there's a bunch of us out there that use them for a bunch of different things. But there's my population sizing formula. I leave that hidden so that I don't accidentally overwrite that when because what I'll do is I'll create a new entry, and then I'll like it, and then I'll freeze the value in there. I'll copy and paste value back on top of itself. But the other things I need to figure out, at least early on, when were the settlements founded? All right, because most of the ones in the coastal area are either old or rebuilt. But everything down here is going to probably be less than 250 years old, give or take. These guys may be a little bit older. These guys, not more than about 150 years. Leadership, I want to know, is it a mayor? I'll need to come up with names of the leaders, of whoever the current bosses are. But I know, for example, at Enmere, is actually led by a council that consists of the 4 founding families. All right, so I could put that in there. I want to give a little thought to that, to what kind of government structures. I'm not going to get into stupid detail about the government structures yet, but this will tell me, do I care? Is it a council, especially the smaller towns? Is it just a town like council of elders? If so, how many are there? Who am I going to have to name? Is there just a mayor that I have to name? So again, I'm not necessarily going to come up with all those names and people yet, but this will start to give me an idea of what what people and what kind of structures I need to worry about. I do know this one too, and I actually have a date for that. I have to go back and find it. And then all of these columns over here are basically going to be for demographics. And I want to at least have a general percentage of the population for each of the towns. How much of Enmere is human, half elf, half orc, etc. And they're going to vary, in certain areas. I can tell you Cliffport's going to have lots of dwarves. Because this is the home city of the seafarer dwarves. And those things will actually end up, but that way as my players go into a town, and likely these are the first 2 towns they're going to encounter in game, but they'll have an idea of what to expect. Should they be surprised to see an elf walking around? The answer is no, but if they know that 10% of the population is halfling, then they're going to expect 1 in 10 to be halflings. The other thing that population is going to inform me on, and I haven't put it up here yet, but maybe I can start to, because these are the things I start to think about. This is this is my world building method. Is how many shops, and I could actually break it down. If I know the population, and again, we're thinking technology being, you know what, let me shrink this down so I can see my chat. Isaac needs to borrow that formula. Sure, to be honest, I'll actually make this. I have to clean it up, or by the time when I'm done with it, I'll make this spreadsheet available to anybody that's interested. But in the meantime, yeah, if you need the formula, I can give you the formula. I am a big user of the VLOOKUP functions to pull data out of tables, and I don't want to do that. And to pull data out of tables, and that's basically what this formula does. It, you unhide it again. Well, you got a round in here, but you see this rand between says give me 2 numbers and I'll pick a random number between them. This VLOOKUP is looking for the minimum value. This one is looking for the maximum value, and it's pulling those out of this table. And this extra little stuff in here, you see this match function. That's so that if I decide I need more headings in this table, the VLOOKUP tables are generally very picky because you actually have to give it a column number. All right, which is fine if you know exactly what your lookup table is going to look like. But as soon as you go in and insert, you decide, oh, I need to add a new column here. This would break VLOOKUP if I didn't have that match function in there, because the match function actually tells it go across the top line and pardon me, and find the column that has the word minimum in it and give me back that column number so that I can actually, go over time. I can add and subtract from this table without worrying about it breaking all my formulas. The other trick is, you'll notice I have these end columns here, and when I define the named area for the column, I always run it out to the ends, and again, that way I can come in here and insert a column, and I don't have to worry about having to resize or restructure all my named areas. So they're just little Excel tricks that I've picked up along the way. And then even the round off, all right, the how many places to round off to, that's what this third rounding column is. So for capital cities, they're between 250,000 and 1 million people. Give me the number to the nearest 1,000 is fine. For cities and large towns, the population to the nearest 100 is fine. For the towns and villages, it is to the nearest 10. And for hamlets, they're small enough, I'll take an exact number. And I don't know if the person is on here, but I know about 2 weeks ago in summer camp, there was a discussion about what is a hamlet versus what is a village, and I know there's like a standing definition out there that basically says a hamlet is a village that doesn't have a church, but I'm using hamlet to denote a really, really small village as well. It's just a little easier to have a name for it. I didn't want to get I'm already stuck with large town and town. I didn't want to have large village, small village. And I could have renamed capital to be large city. I mean, I could do that, but different names are a little more interesting looking. So anyway, like I said, I want to start working about that. Shops. I started talking about shops. I'm running all over the place today. If I know there's 1,500 people in a town, all right, I can figure out, how many bakeries do you need to make the bread, to bake the daily bread allotments, let's say, for 1,500 people. All right, and I can come up with some some numbers for things like that. How many butcher shops are there? How much are these people eating? Not that I'm going to have to identify every one of them, but it gives me an idea for what kind of commerce is actually needed in the various in the towns. We get down to these small guys, for example, 60 people. 60 people is probably only about 15 or 20 families. One baker, one butcher is probably more than enough. But when we start getting up to 3,000, can one bakery, using, hand kneading loaves and stone ovens, can one bakery turn out enough bread for the day for 3,000 people? I don't know. Maybe they need 2. Maybe they need 3. So I get to think about things like that. It also gives me a feel for how many taverns you need in a town. Do I want 3,000 people crowding into one bar at night? Not that every one of them goes to the tavern every night, but you start to get a feel once you know the population of an area. That you can use those numbers to kind of give you a hint as to how many different types of business establishments you need. And then the other question comes into, is the city large enough to support a library? Is it large enough to have some sort of school? How many temples of what type? This is a polytheistic world, so a hamlet of 100 people is not going to have separate buildings for the elven gods and the dwarven gods and the this and the that, even if there's all of those different people living in one place. In fact, a really small town like that is probably liable to have one building that also doubles as the town hall and meeting hall for the whole town. That might just have little tables set up around the sides that are altars to the various different pantheons and or individual gods. But once you start getting up into the tens of thousands, now you might start having the predominant religion building a dedicated building for them, for themselves. And then once you get into the city size things, into the hundreds of thousands, you probably have quite a number of those. So knowing the population will help me eventually to design the cities. I don't have to design all the cities right now, though. Going back to the discussion about build what you need before just before you need it. But I at least need the starting information available so that I can give it to the players, because that will help inform them if they decide they really need to go shopping, and they really need or they really want to go shopping, whether I want them to or not, and they really want to try to find a town with a magic shop. Let's use the classic trope here. They'll be able to go to this information and kind of guess, or maybe even see it, available. How far away is the nearest town that actually has a magic shop, or a potion shop, or something like that. And that will help inform them as to what they want to do, in game and in between sessions and that sort of thing. Have I missed anything important in the chat? Let's see. I'd have to slow down my MooBot. It's one of the busiest chatters in here. Isaac, I might need to borrow. Enizel, I'm likely using mine while I'm streaming. Isaac, but you stream at 4 a.m. Yeah, real fancy Excel stuff. Yeah, that's, like I said, I play with that stuff all the time. My wife is living in Excel lately, but she's doing pivot tables. No, thank you. The day I decide I need a pivot table to run my D&D games or my Pathfinder games, I think is the day that the world is ending. I remember there being a clever PDF for that. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. But building clever PDFs means paying Adobe lots of money for software. And I have no reason to do that when I'm already paying Microsoft lots of money for software. What is this replying to the MooBot? Okay. The taverns, yes. Yeah, Google is pretty much where I taught myself a lot of this stuff. But I had my last campaign. I had it was a second edition world, and I had spreadsheets set up for that. I still have them, with massive, shopping list, for example. I think I had over 1,400 items in the potential shopping list. With encumbrances and base costs, and what I would actually do is when you went into a town, I had a ability with the spreadsheet to kind of set up a shop in the town that pulled out, for example, like if it was a clothing shop, it would go through the master list and pull out all the clothing pieces, and I could apply a markup, like a standard markup for the town, like everything in this shop. If it's a clothing item, it's at cost, but if it's an accessory, it's at 1.2 times whatever cost is, and I was able to hand the players, here's the shopping list for the shop you're in. I don't know that I'm going to get carried away here, at least not initially. That eventually, but we'll see. Oh, PDF with stats for Fantasy Town demographics. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what I'm gonna do here is I'll probably set up some standards and then just tweak them, for different regions. Because I don't know that I'll be able to fully automate all of this because a lot of it depends on exactly where the town is. And if I go back to the map, I know for example that this area up around here is going to be mostly human and halfling. Um, Now, having said that, wherever there are humans and wherever there is anybody, there's goblins. But usually they're never a high percentage of the population unless it actually happens to be a predominantly goblin town, and there's very few of those. As you start heading this way, there's going to be more and more dwarves living in the towns and having something to do with the sea, most likely. Hillbottom will have a fair number of dwarves because there's also a good there's a mining link to there. Once you get down into the interior, again, pretty much the only dwarves you're going to run into are the ones that decided they want to be blacksmiths and the ones that decided they wanted to be adventurers. So there's going to be a low percentage, not zero, but a low percentage of dwarves. Gnomes are another one, by the way, that are kind of everywhere. They're never in high concentrations, but wherever there are other folk, you'll find gnomes hanging around. Now, there's going to be lots of elves and half-elves down and in and around. And in fact, one of the other settlements I have to put in here, there is an elven settlement right about where my hand is now, right about where the hand on the map is. That has been there since the elves were awakened 18, 19, 20,000 years ago, whatever it is. So there's been an elven home there basically since the beginning of elves. So I have to put that in there. I just have to figure out a good way to denote that because they don't really live in a town or a village like the other folks. They have a town, but it's a little different structure. I have to see what kind of assets I can put on the map for that. There will also be a lot of dwarves in Four Rivers because there's another main dwarven delve. And I have to add that road too. There should be a trade road. Maybe I'll use the river. Maybe I'll just use the river for this. There's another main dwarven delve off this way. So maybe they just take a road to where they hit the river and then take the river in. I can live with that. That'll be different. I like I said, the ratio of different types of people is going to vary based on region. I don't know that I can create a formula for that. Maybe I could, based on the region. But I would still have to customize those numbers, I think, before I'm done. So, 45 minutes in, and I haven't written a word yet. And I don't think anybody has redeemed a sprint, have they? Laura has to head off. Good. Enjoy the rest of your day, Laura. I'm sure I'll catch up with you sometime along the way. Somebody else is going off to bed. Walking Dead is going off to sleep. Yeah. What else do we have here? Space Trash has delivered a copy of that PDF. That'll be interesting. Isaac, I'll DM you that formula. For the population or for the whatever, you can play with it and do whatever. Why is it doing that? Okay. So anyway, let's get started. And I actually do think I'm going to get started on the spreadsheet. I do have a couple of dates that I need to look up. But I can probably save that for later so that you're not all watching me rummage through folders and folders of spreadsheets and documents looking for the same one. Then again, maybe I should let you see that so you'll see why World Anvil is so good. because to be honest, World Anvil appeared to me at just the time where I was starting to get very out of hand with the different files and bits and pieces of building this world out. So it miraculously appeared in a Great GM YouTube, and it is definitely making my life better. So anyway, let's get started. I don't know what you folks are working on today, but if you like, maybe we'll do a free sprint, a free short sprint. But if anybody does want to, again, if you've collected enough dino tracks, you can demand a sprint at any time. There's a 5-minute sprint option and a 10-minute sprint option. They're a bit pricey. Tuesday is a good sprint day because normally I will be working on World Anvil articles and things like that. So feel free to do that. But I'll do sprints on all my other stream days as well. In my personal case, I might be focusing on something other than just an article. But I can work quietly for 10 minutes while everybody else is writing away. So, Egon, I've just gotten a nice book called Spectacular Settlements. Been really good for designing towns and demos. Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of picking up some resources for that, but I've generally never had too much trouble until it comes to actually laying out the design of the town, and that's when the real hassles start coming in. Almost out of caffeine. That's when everybody's going to start hitting the caffeinate button, when I don't have any left. So anyway, let's get started. And unless anybody has any other questions about how I do this and why I do what I'm doing. By the way, this map is incarnate for those of you who are wondering what the tool is. I like it. I like the looks of the maps. I will say that with the 10,000 or so trees that are on this map, my poor 12-year-old computer was finally starting to slow down or drag a little bit. I will probably not be building, working further on these maps in Incarnate on stream because working on it last night with absolutely nothing else going on my machine. I was testing the memory limits of the machine. I do have another machine on order, finally, and hope when that comes in, maybe we can have some more fun. But anyway, to work on, I'm going to start focusing on the areas, and again, this goes back to the whole just-in-time world building. My players are here. All right. So the towns I need to deal with are in this area. So I'm going to try to focus on getting some information on those towns first, and then kind of work my way out. The only exceptions might be I'll get a little bit on Enmere because I have a few players who call that, who claim that as home. So they would obviously want to have some, some information about the town they grew up in. And as well, yeah, the graphics does start taxing machines; they get bigger. Now, Incarnate is a web-based system, and it did pretty well. I mean, the beauty is, like I said, there are over 10,000 trees on this map. Fortunately, thank God, you don't have to place them one at a time. They have very, very good painting tools for laying down trees, and even laying down the different. You can play around with density. So I was able to stripe in the low density edges, and then crank up the density a bit and get the really, really thick full sections. and fortunately, because they do have a layering capability, um, it's not huge layering capability, but it was enough that it allowed me. For example, when I first built this map, I had this whole region filled in with trees too, and I realized it shouldn't have been for this map. And my big fear, of course, was, oh great, now I'm going to have to go in and wipe out all those trees, and I'm going to have to click them out one at a time, because otherwise I'm going to pick up the hills and everything else. Fortunately, the hills and the text and the towns and the everything else were on a different layer. So once I figured out with Incarnate how I can lock a layer, I was able to chop this stuff out with like one huge select swath and take care of most of it. Because I did have a lot of fun, for example, moving between that map and this one. You'll notice I did have to change some hills. Oh, that's interesting. The hills are in different places. That's okay, though. You know, maybe that happened. You'll notice the towns are in ruins at the end of the Great Strife. Enmir was my city that rebuilt itself, by the way. You'll notice I think I have a nice mix of brown and black for the devastated nothing grows here areas. The Oakwood is an interesting forest, by the way. It was a first failed experiment at getting stuff to grow after the Great Strife. The trees do indeed grow, but they grow. These are twisted, evil, gnarled trees. The good Fae won't live there anymore. So this band of forest is literally a danger barrier that separates the coast from the rest of the frontier. This is a very treacherous road. Because all kinds of nasty, evil things live in the woods, in those woods. So I'll have a lot of fun once the players get up into this region and start playing. There'll be all kinds of fun stuff for them to have to deal with. The other interesting thing is you'll notice Carnes Lake is called that because the guy who founded Carnstown called it Carnes Lake. Before he got there, it had a different name, but that name is kind of lost to history now. I get a kick out of doing that. You get to see the color changes and the region changes, especially down here. You see, the elves have had a little bit of success in getting some of their forest back, but they've still got a long way to go. Because when I get the before the Great Strife map in here, this forest is fully dense all the way down to this neck. Alright, so there's a lot more trees that have to be placed in here, and I have to turn these hills into green hills and all that kind of good stuff. But I procrastinate. Let us get back to this. So anyway, the towns I want to focus on are these two. And Carnstown. Oh, also Dryad Falls. Forgot. Town or village? I think village. And there you see an example. I got a population. Actually, I want that one to be a little higher. That's a little high for a village. There's a good number. So I will lock that. So I want to try to get these guys done first, because these are the towns and villages that the parties that are playing in my world right now are most likely to want to interact with. So, of these, okay, I know, and we're going to go back to look at the map. Alright, so basically, sometime around 150 years ago, people started making their way. It would have been longer ago than that they made their way into the Meadows area. Alright, so Meadows End and maybe even Laketon. Laketon might be 250 years old. In fact, let's call it 250 years old. All right, so let's jump in there. We'll find Laketon. And there's Laketon. Founded. All right, time for some more quick math here. We're going to create an age column. And over here in my lookup areas, current year is 2271. We're going to give that field a name. We'll bold both of those. And we'll actually stick that there. Now what I can do is if I put in an approximate age of the town, I know that my formula is always going to be equals current year minus whatever's in the age column. We'll center that. So if I say Laketon is 250 years old, let's pick a random number. Let's say 253 years old. Now I know what year Laketon was founded. Carnstown I have a date for. I have to just go hunting for it. But let's go back to the map again now. And so if Laketon is 250 years. Meadows End, well, let's throw a date in for that one too. Let's say people first braved getting through the messy stuff about 421 years ago. Four Rivers would have been probably a little older. Because there's reason for people to have gone to Four Rivers, because again there's trade in there. So this would have been an earlier, but they would have had no reason to go any deeper because this is all the elves and the fae, and there's nothing down there as far as anybody knew that anybody cared about, at least for a long time. So Meadows End is here. People came in here. They actually started farming and doing agriculture and sheep herding and all that kind of good stuff. Eventually, they made their way down to Laketon. And then from Laketon, they would have ventured in farther to Dryad's Falls. Let's say maybe about 50 years after they hit Laketon. So let's call that one 198 years old. All right, that's about right, because I think a lot of my text say about 150 years ago people started coming into the Feywood. So I lied. Maybe I'll have to make a few adjustments. Either that or I could knock that back down to 100. Well, no, because that one has to be there before Carnstown, because that's Carnstown was a hardy adventurer that just kind of drilled his way right in here and said, I'm going to... In fact, he probably came down from Four Rivers. Said, I do want to see what's down there. So Dryad's Falls. 198 years. Spirit Lake. Would have been not much longer after that. Fabridge Crossing. And if I have to go back and tweak some article dates, I will. Fabridge Crossing is a small town. 125 years, let's say. Yeah, why not? And Carnstown is about 150. I'm going to put 150 in here now, but we'll work on that from there. Spudbarrow is probably also about 120 years ago, let's say. All right, so some of these are going to need some tweaking. I need to go back and look at Carnstown, so let me just highlight that one so I know to go back and look at that. And if I have to adjust that, I will. This other hamlet, by the way, that's missing here, there's actually two. There's a little mining town right around here that's in good mining history terms. It's got a name that suggests that it's a wonderful gold strike town and it's rich and you really want to come here and live. The reality is that there's practically nothing there. Pardon me. There's practically nothing there because the dwarves mined it out 10,000 years ago. And Carnstown has a couple of small mining villages that it supports. That actually the Carn family runs the mines, but because the Carns family is like that. But there'll be a couple of little mining settlement kind of things right here at the edge of the woods, so I have to figure out how to get them onto the map as well. Alright, so I have ages. Fabridge Crossing is going to have an elected mayor. Dryad's Falls is going to have a council elders. This is where we have to start thinking about spreading stuff out a bit. Spudbarrow. How would halflings govern themselves? There'll probably be a ceremonial mayor. And that's small enough people that they can all kind of get together to make major decisions. So we'll just call it democratic. Spirit Lake is going to take its cue from Dryad's Falls. This area, by the way, is a very there are no, well, with the exception of the Carn family in Carnstown, there are not any feudal lords. That the whole reason people came to the frontier was to get away from the whole feudal lord and bend the knee kind of garbage. The attitude anyway. I'm not saying that the flavor is American West in the 1800s, but the attitude is very definitely American West in the 1800s. If I missed anything in chat, do a quick run back. Oh, I have a 5-minute sprint request. Okay, we will do a 5-minute sprint. Gonna because I have to make sure I do those things. And I have to hydrate. So I'm going to hydrate first, and then I'm going to launch my timer for a 5-minute sprint. So those of you that are actually writing, get your stuff ready. And I will bring up my clock. And we're going to set it for 5 minutes. And the clock starts now. And I'm going to use that 5 minutes to go find the actual Carnstown date. And it might actually be in here. Are you guys hearing echoes of the music, by the way? Because I didn't have my speakers turned all the way down. I'm not sure if my microphone is picking up my speakers, but if it is, you're probably getting a 15-second echo on the music. If you're not hearing that, let me know, or if you are hearing it, let me know, and I'll fix it. Carnstown. This is the article I'm looking for. Let's just view it. Yeah, see, there we go. I knew I had something in here. 152 years ago, by Jasric Karn. Do I have the current leader's name? I bet I do. Now, this article actually goes on to describe how they deliberately don't take the mayor's job, but the fact is the Karn family handpicks the city mayor, the court magistrate, and the chief of the watch. Those are the three main positions in the town. But they're handpicked by the leaders of the family. Isaac, I think this is where the Godfather discussion came in, because this family is very Godfather-like. You know, we aren't the senators and congressmen, but we own the senators and congressmen. That's the Karn family in Carnstown. But the number I was looking for was 152 years. I wasn't too far off. I can take this back down to normal. Make a note in here. Puppet elections. What is the Carnstown population going to look like? Here is something to do. It would be good to make sure that numbers will all add up to 100. let's start off with 50% human and see where it goes from there. Percent, probably very few half-orcs. Fair amount of halflings. What are we up to? 77%. Might have a lot of elves. Need to make elf a little bigger. That might work. So yes, these are all very, very randomly generated numbers. Now, am I happy with them is the question. I do want it to be a human-dominated, and I'm using Pathfinder rules, so technically these three columns are all, from a game mechanic standpoint, are all human. In Pathfinder 2, half-elves and half-orcs are not separate races. They are heritages of human. I'm not sure I like that, but it is what it is right now. We'll have to see. And they don't have crossbreeds between the other races, although that's something I'm exploring. I am in Cartyrion, by the way, besides just building the playout that is 100% Pathfinder 2 compatible. I am very, very open to optional rules, extra rules, or additional stuff. I mean, I'm already defining extra heritages and probably extra backgrounds and things like that. I will be getting into, I know tomorrow, in fact, for the Pathfinder folks, is the release of the Advanced Player's Handbook. And in the Advanced Player's Handbook, they're introducing a whole bunch of new player races and a whole bunch of new various, heritages and backgrounds and things that go along with player races. Some of them are already on my radar to be included, like lizard folk, and probably even full orcs. I'll be curious to see what else they have in that book. Unfortunately, everything I've seen as far as advanced copies of it, it looks like they weren't satisfied with actually being the easier to play derivative of the original Open Gaming License 3.5 D&D 3.5 rule set. Wizards of the Coast went one direction, Paizo went the other. And when Pathfinder 2 came out, in my opinion, I think Pathfinder finally got it right. They have just the right balance between quantity of rules and freedom of, freedom to actually be creative. And then all of a sudden, the Advanced Player Guide comes out, and now we need to have, well, if all of this stuff exists in D&D 5e, we need to have it too. And it's really going to just muddy the waters. But I'm going to have to deal with it if I want to be compatible. So that doesn't mean they have to all live on Cartyrion, though. So it's my world, my rules. Yeah. All right, so we have Carnstown. Carnstown looks like that might do. The only thing I might tweak up are the elves and the halflings, and the half-elves. But if I did that, actually, you know what? Half-elves are going to be rarer. So let's do that. Elves are going to be there just because they're in the middle of the Feywood, and there's going to be elves there. 5% dwarves might even be much. Let's call that. Let's knock that down to 4. They're going to have very specific jobs. Even the dwarves that aren't living, that for a long time are not living deep under the mountains, they're not necessarily happiest in the middle of a forest. What am I down to? 99% now. let's give the last percentage back to halflings. Okay. Yeah, Godai removed a lot of the species. Yeah, I mean, it's just too many. I mean, you know, and I know what Wizards of the Coast was doing. I mean, you know, it's just, you know, if somebody came up with something cool and enough people on Reddit said, yeah, this is a good idea, then Wizards did it. But that whole, to me anyway, that whole mindset, the whole Wizards mindset, has always been focused on, you know, building more powerful characters, you know, more you know, ability-filled characters, more specialty characters, so that you can be the best. One of the things I like about Paizo is they've done such a good job of balancing the various classes and the various races that you can be almost anything and still be a contributing member, you know, of your party. You don't need to have standard party organizations. I have one of my test groups has a half-orc barbarian, a halfling druid, a halfling bard, and a goblin alchemist, and that's the whole party. All right, and the first thing, you know, if you're thinking traditional party structure, your first question is, well, where's the healer? All right, and the reality is, in Pathfinder, both the bard and the alchemist can provide all the healing the party needs. All right, as far as a tank, they have the barbarian. You know, they do have a half-orc barbarian, so they have at least somebody to stand in and fight. The bard can do, you know, they I don't know that I think the only thing they're really kind of missing is a good ranged damage dealer. But even there, I mean, over time, the bard is going to be able to do some of that. And the druid will actually be able to do some of that. So, you know, you can build parties out of odd collections of characters and still have it as a playable, survivable party. You can build characters with flaws and still have a playable, survivable party. All right, and that's one of the things that appealed to me in Pathfinder. It's actually more fun to play if you're roll with an E playing and not just roll with an L playing. So, that's my 5-minute timer. That has to be done long ago. Yes, timer is done long ago. The one thing I still have to work on is getting my timer to actually show up where I can see it on my screen, but that'll come when I have a 2-monitor system. So how did people do in the sprint? Those of you who did sprint. Gabby, you asked for it, so how'd you do? Gabby's not answering. Either that or I'm way behind lag-wise. So what did I get done in a sprint? I populated one town. Yay. But let's see, moving on. Let's see if we get an answer to that eventually. Spud Barrow. Let's do Spud Barrow. Well, the first thing we know about Spud Barrow is it's primarily halfling, so it's at least going to be 60% halfling, and probably more than that. We're going to say 65% halfling. And that still may go up. There's probably going to be a few gnomes floating around, because they like to get everywhere, and they'll be more comfortable with a bunch of halflings. Humans will be in a distinct minority here. I might end up raising the halfling population of this town significantly. No half-orcs there, though. that's the case, then what does this have to become? 78? There we go. How does that look like for a good predominantly halfling town? There'll be a couple of hangers on that. Now keep in mind, for humans, 4%. That would be 4% of 1,500 is what? About 60. So, yeah, there's a few humans around. We'll have to figure out jobs. We'll figure out things for them to do. Faybridge Crossing is the other town they're going to hit quite frequently. That one is also going to be predominantly human half-elf. So let's start with those. We're going to put a few more half-orcs in here, though, just for giggles. Halflings will be there. At 4% dwarf is a good standard. Gonna have to adjust a few numbers down here. Knock that down to 14 and this down to 12. I want to put a bunch of gnomes in here, but I need more goblins. So where do I take them from? Let's see. A few halflings. A few dwarves. There we go. You know, it might be interesting to see what these actual numbers work out to be. So maybe what I will do is how do I want to do this? I don't like the way Excel takes over my screen, by the way. Everybody's being very quiet out there. Are you still there, folks? Am I still here? Is anybody still here? Earth to anybody. Come in, anybody. I like to see something happening in the chat so I know I'm not talking to dead air. There we go. Thank you for no reason. Working, so this is mostly on in background. Okay. Oh, that's true. Yeah, you know, it's I kind of lose track. I mean, those, you know, there are actually shudder people out there that have real daytime jobs. And in the US, it's daytime job now. Job time. I think what I want to do is I want to see how many people this actually ends up translating into. So I'm going to do a little bit more work on this spreadsheet now. And Isaac, who knows, this could end up being a fun spreadsheet for you too, to play with then. And I think the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a line. We'll do a test line with Spud Barrow. I'm going to insert a line here. And then the first thing I'm going to do, which is going to be a pain in the neck to maintain or build, but I'll be able to handle that. I'm going to merge a lot of these fields together. It'll give me a little more room to work with the with that field anyway. But once we get to here, I'm going to merge this one. But then here we're going to say equals that times that. And make it not a percentage. And since I don't believe in fractional people, that would be 61 humans, and I can actually play a little more with that rounding formula, but before we do that, the G is going to be fixed. Copy the formulas and the formats over to here. And just out of curiosity, let's add up the totals. And look at that. This one actually worked. It actually rounded out to the and ended up being the same number. So that'll give us an idea of how many of each people we're actually dealing with in here. So there's about 60 humans, so that'll be about, what, 12 to 15 families worth of humans, half-elves. Dwarves. How many people in a dwarf family? I generally, you never think about dwarf families, do you? But they obviously have to exist. On the one hand, I don't see a bunch of I don't see piles of little dwarves running around mommy and daddy. But on the other hand, when you live for 350 years, you have a lot of opportunity to raise kids. So I don't know. Are there there could be 22 kids in a dwarven family. That might be one dwarven family. That might be interesting. The same thing with elves. I mean, how often do elves have kids? And when you live 700 years, how many kids can you have? Goblins, gnomes. Those are good numbers. I think I'm happy with those numbers. What do these numbers look like in the next town? So now we'll come up here. First thing we're going to do is see if we can do this quicker. If I copy that, will it let me reformat that? But yes, it does. Look at that. And then I can do that. And that number even worked out. See what Carnes does. Oh no. OBS Studio disconnected. Did I go away for a while? How long did I disappear for, folks? It looks like I had a whole big twitch because I'm welcome to the chat room all over again. Let's see, what does OBS think I'm doing right now? Well, I know what OBS is going to think I'm doing. The question is, what does this think I'm doing? I have a network error. That's always fun. Let's see what refreshing this does. Once again, I will ask if anybody is out there and can hear me. Please just type something in the chat so I know I'm alive. Well, Pretzel Rocks found me. That's a good start, I guess. Looks like the stream manager is happy. It knows I'm live. That's a good thing. Okay, so that's all looking good. You can turn that off. Let me reload my chat window. Well, as far as I can tell, I'm still alive. And as far as I can tell, I still have a few people at least lurking. So that will have to be sufficient. So let me get back to doing what I was doing. I was about to copy these formulas over here. And I'm obviously going to have to go up and do that everywhere else. But for now. That gives me some good starting points. We got populations. I could probably do Laketon too. You know what? Actually, I need to swap these two numbers around. Laketon should be bigger. Dryad's Falls is going to be similar to Faybridge Crossing. So let's start with these numbers and then tweak them. There'll be a few more humans. A few fewer half-elves. A few fewer elves, too. We're going to give Dryad Falls a sizable goblin population. What are we up to? 102%. Lake Tomb will be even more slightly human. Those numbers are Spirit Lake. It's going to be almost exactly the same as Dryad's Falls. In fact, I could leave it the same as Dryad's Falls and no one would know any different, would they? So, do I still have a connection here? Why is nothing coming up in my chat? I'm not seeing Moobot. I'm not seeing Pretzel. OBS says I'm streaming. I don't know if Moonflower Rider is out there, but as you can see, we all have these wonderful little glitches from time to time. Pop-out mode is enabled for chat. Okay, that's a good thing. Let's restart Pretzel. See if we can make that work. In the meantime, let's get into The struggling machine. Come on, guy, hold out for 15 more minutes, please. Okay, Tillers is live. Huh. And now Pretzel Rocks fires up just because I killed it. Alright, I tell you what, folks, I'm gonna wrap this up a few minutes early. Rather than having you spend 15 minutes watching me suffer trying to get my system performance back, we are going to raid Tillers. As soon as I get back enough control to do that. Looks like I might be able to just do that, though. So we're going to do a Tillers raid. As soon as I get back a little bit of control here. Come on, you can do it. And this is where everything freezes up. Yay! What can I do from my phone? I'm waiting looking for it to give me a cursor where I can type a raid command. Tiller's raided me with a party. At least I can text chat. Let's see. Oh, look at that. My chat reset. Again.